Another 10 million here. Who's willing? I know, it's like we're getting really close. This is awesome. Okay, so I think we're ready to get started here. We're going to hear from our Undersecretary as well as our Congresswoman in just a minute, as well as folks associated, the Executive Director of Fusion Theater. I'm just going to really kick things off and want to welcome everyone back to another piece of the Rail Trail, a project that I know has, over the past few months, completely just caught wind in its sails, and it is now full speed ahead. And it's a far cry from, I think, 2 years ago, which we've shared. We had minor funding to try and make this happen just from a design standpoint. And it was just, we were, clawing and kicking and screaming to get 100,000 here and 100,000 there. Then we wake up today with thanks to our federal government, our partners, our Congresswoman, and most importantly, the U.S. Department of Transportation, Secretary Pete Buttigieg and his team. We are announcing today $11.5 million in addition to everything else we already have for the rail trail. That is awesome. So just for everyone here, round of applause. Thank you. So a little bit about the project and the people. First, I do just want to acknowledge, of course, Karen Iverson and her team. They've loved this project from day one. This project was actually around before we came to office. And we looked at, as you should, the previous projects. And this was kind of, we dusted it off, this might be good. And then Karen just ran with it. And she stayed persistent with it despite ebbs and flows of executive support. And so we are all in and then some on this. And then just want to highlight Siren. Wrote the grant for this. Congratulations. Missed a semester of school just to nail this grant application. Thank you. And I told her she gets a get out of free jail card or whatever it is for class, certainly from the city of Albuquerque, with your professors. So let me share a couple of things. Everyone here is pretty familiar with this project, but right there, you see railroads. And Scott Forrester walking up with his little one. Well played, Scott, on cue. So our vision is to create something that very few actually elected leaders get to be a part of. Typically, there might be one at most in an elected leader's sort of stint in office. And hopefully we'll have a few. Lawrence is here, so we're betting on a few horses because he's good at that. But this is going to be one of them, a defining signature project for our administration and for generations to come. The rail trail is essentially a pedestrian multi-use parkway that will connect the rail yards at one end all the way across here to Lomas. That's phase 1 and 2. And then if you go to phase 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, all the way down to where Old Town is, and perhaps even all the way to Tingley Beach, because there is appropriate land and so forth to do that. So this would truly unite our city with a beautiful multi-use pedestrian parkway that also includes all sorts of amenities around it. I know the Garcias are here. They saw this vision long before others and have been buying up properties along all over downtown, but also on each side of the rail trail is this notion of activating space and doing placemaking that brings people to downtown and to the core of our city. And I will tell you, when this project is done, as you can see by these pictures, this is a project every single New Mexican will know about. It is that powerful. It is just like when I was a kid growing up and maybe you didn't go on it, but you all knew about the tram. Everyone knows about the zoo. This project is that for a next generation, a landmark that will be remembered and celebrated for our entire state. And so we've gotten lots of help from City Council, 10 million or so plus. We've gotten help from our governor, another 10 million there in the state. And now a wonderful welcome piece of funding, 11.5 million through a RAISE grant from the Department of Transportation. And so what I'd like to do is welcome up, we're so fortunate to have a very senior member from the administration here. And as some fun aside notes, which are mildly partisan, but this is not a partisan event, we both met our partners working for the Obama campaign. So we've got that in common. And of course, Secretary Pete, who went to school with the First Lady and who I knew quite well back in his mayoral days. So a wonderful first full circle event to be here with Undersecretary for Policy, Carlos Monje. Carlos, coming up, share a few words. Thank you so much.
Congratulations. Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you so much, Mayor, for that introduction. Good afternoon. It is great to be in Albuquerque today. A chance to talk about this investment. This is the best part of my job, is seeing the passion, the excitement, the pride in people's eyes, and knowing that this project is going to transform this part of town. As the Department of Transportation dives in on building a safer, more equitable, more modern, climate-friendly transportation system, I couldn't be more thrilled to be hosted by Mayor Keller, who understands how critical this project is to this community. As a former mayor himself, my boss, Secretary Pete Buttigieg, has a unique appreciation for the hard work that it takes to put a project like this to life. Earlier this month, the Biden-Harris administration announced $2.2 billion for 166 projects across the country. This includes infrastructure projects in communities large and small. Half the funding went to rural communities. Nearly 2/3 went to projects located in areas of persistent poverty or historically disadvantaged communities. I've personally seen it in traveling around the country how in so many cities, so many regions, there's 1 mile of infrastructure that makes or break a system. And people who depend on that mile may not even see it because you accept it, you live with it, you get along. But an enhancement of that mile can make all the difference in the world. It can be part of a freight corridor that has a bottleneck, a pinch point that slows down getting critical goods to people. It can be a boulevard that has few transit options, that forces more vehicles on our roads and causes increased congestion. And I've seen many highways cut through cities, segregating residents from critical services, green space, and waterfronts. Today, by investing this mile, the U.S. Department of Transportation is providing increased safety and enhanced access to downtown Albuquerque. And it's certainly a co-investment and partnership with this community and with the state of New Mexico. I was very pleased to see Governor Lujan Grisham announce $10 million investment on top of the $10 million that the mayor discussed from the city. The Albuquerque Rail Trail will provide a physical separation between bicyclists and cars. It's going to help reduce collisions, while creating more transportation options. In particular, the project will improve accessibility for underserved community by connecting existing bicycle infrastructure and transit alternatives. The project will reduce bicycle fatalities by up to 88%, preventing up to 345 injuries and fatalities over the next 30 years. It's going to create a safer pedestrian connector right through the heart of downtown. It's going to improve and expand access to active transportation and increase the number of bicycle trips by up to 500,000 trips per year. And it's going to reduce the number of cars on the road as much as 99,000 vehicle miles traveled by encouraging more people to get out of their cars and onto their bikes. It's going to enable $270 million in trail-oriented development. If you go around the country and see trails like this, you will not believe the amount of economic development that's going to happen along this trail in the years to come. And it's one of the most compelling part of this project is the partnership that we're seeing with the local community, with the Friends of the Trail. You're going to hear from Dennis, who is so passionate. I got here before everybody else did, and Dennis's enthusiasm. I asked him if he was a transportation expert, and it turns out he's so much more. I mentioned earlier that the RAISE program more than doubled since last year, and that's because of the bipartisan infrastructure law. That's a law that President Biden championed and signed into law in November, that Secretary Buttigieg barnstormed the country to build support for, and that would not have been possible without the support of Representative Stansbury and Senators Heinrich and Lujan, and as well as Congresswoman Leger Fernandez. Because of their leadership, the law contains the largest investment in roads, bridges, and highways since the creation of the interstate highway system. It's $110 billion in new funding on top of the money that we already had. That includes $40 billion, $40 billion with a B, for bridge repair and replacement. For transit, it's the biggest investment in transit in our nation's history, $90 billion. On the rail side, the largest investment in passenger rail since the creation of Amtrak itself. And the bipartisan infrastructure law also has $20 billion for the nation's airport system. It's been a good month for the administration. Earlier this month, President Biden signed into law the Inflation Reduction Act, which is a victory for lowering costs for families, combating the climate crisis, and reducing the deficit. It's also going to make corporations finally pay their fair share. The The Inflation Reduction Act will lower costs for working families by lowering healthcare costs, saving 13 million Americans $800 a year. It's going to lower prescription drug costs, capping out-of-pocket expenses on prescription drugs for seniors at $2,000 a month, capping the cost of insulin for Medicare patients at $35 a month, and finally, letting Medicare negotiate down drug prices and use the negotiating power of the government. It's going to lower energy costs. It's going to help us tackle the climate crisis, the most significant legislation in U.S. history to cut pollution, advance environmental justice, and create good-paying jobs here in the United States, making solar panels, wind turbines, electric vehicles. It's going to make the tax code more fair, making sure that the wealthiest and largest corporations pay their fair share and that no one making under $400,000 a year will pay a penny more in their taxes. Legislation for us, selfishly, includes additional resources for the U.S. Department of Transportation to continue our momentum, reconnecting communities divided by legacy infrastructure projects, investing in lower carbon building materials and sustainable aviation fuels. So from the American Rescue Plan, that was right after we took office, the bipartisan infrastructure law, helping veterans impacted by burn pits, to investments in American semiconductors and science, the Inflation Reduction Act, President Biden and congressional Democrats are delivering progress and prosperity for American families. Congrats again to the city of Albuquerque. This is a really competitive program. It was worth the semester off. It was for every dollar of projects that we spend, and we're able to have celebrations like this, we have to turn away $5 in really good projects. And so this is an incredibly prestigious program. It's very competitive, and it's really the passion, the partnership, and the vision of the people here in this community that made it happen. So congratulations. I would have had a big check, but I couldn't fit it in the overhead. But congratulations, Mayor.
We'll take the small one. Thank you. Thank you so much for that, Undersecretary, and so special to have you here in person too. Welcome to the Duke City, and we hope you come back soon. And feel free to bring additional checks. So we are so fortunate to hear. Our Congresswoman has been a tireless fighter for Albuquerque. And this project, I once upon a time had this vision of her and I on like fancy golf carts traveling down the rail trail. And someday we still might do that, but the whole point of that was to just get her to like the rail trail. And to her credit, she saw the value from day one. Her and her team, is that Amtrak? Oh, it's the Rail Runner, close. Another great project for another day. So, but our Congresswoman, she understood, and her team right away, the game changer nature of this project. And that is also, I think, trademark of her leadership in our city. Sometimes you don't have to research things a bunch. Sometimes you don't have to think about it for 5 years. Sometimes you can just say, you know what, that's awesome, and I'm in. And so that's what she's been doing for Albuquerque. Thank you so much, Congresswoman.
All right, well, let's hear it for the bipartisan infrastructure law. Woo! We are here to celebrate this incredible project, which is going to make game-changing investments in downtown Albuquerque that is going to help revitalize our beautiful city, my hometown, our mayor's hometown, and to help bring the best in federal, state, local collaboration to help support our communities to build a more vibrant future for our amazing city. I'm Melanie Stansbury, and I am so deeply proud to serve as your Congresswoman, and I'm so proud to be able to stand with our mayor, with our incredible Undersecretary. Welcome back home to New Mexico. And I really want to thank America's mayor, Mayor Pete Buttigieg, Secretary Buttigieg, for his incredible support for this project. When I had the opportunity to speak with the Secretary a few months ago, this was one of the key projects that we helped to highlight. I also want to thank the mayor and his incredible staff. It takes a village to do this kind of transformational work within a city like ours. And his staff and all of the people who helped to contribute to building a more brighter future for our city have helped to build this opportunity, as well as Dennis Gromleski. I want to thank him for his leadership and his vision and helping to enrich our community and bring his passion for this project to the table. Our mayor and the city have worked for years to secure the funding for this project, which will help to connect our neighborhoods, to make public transit more accessible for our communities, and which will celebrate the rich, beautiful, and diverse history of our community. I'm proud that we're here today to celebrate over $11 million in funding that is coming directly from the bipartisan infrastructure law, which I was proud to vote for and help advance in the House of Representatives. And I want to thank everyone who's helped to create this vision and make sure that we get these dollars right here at home in the wake of passing that bill. Our local businesses and community members count on downtown as a business hub, a community gathering space, and a vibrant center for activities and nightlife and all of the things that we love doing downtown. And this project will help our city reach its full potential. As somebody who grew up in this community and has seen downtown go through various different waves, I'm so excited to see downtown revitalized one more time through the vision of our incredible leaders here in the city. This project leans into our strengths here in Albuquerque, our communities, our families, our young people, our history, and most importantly, our local businesses and cultural institutions, and will help to advance equity, diversity, and economic empowerment in our amazing, beautiful city. And it will do all of this by helping to create new jobs and use more sustainable and locally sourced materials, and help to create a corridor that connects our communities with a more sustainable downtown, managing our stormwater, creating habitat for pollinator species, and also just connecting our communities with a beautiful outdoor space. This project is made possible through incredible partnerships, as we've discussed today, at every single level of government. Last year, as I said, I was proud to help pass the bipartisan infrastructure law, and we know that bill is going to deliver over $3.7 billion to New Mexico. And this project, this rail trail project, is a perfect example of the key investments that this legislation is helping to make happen right here in New Mexico. This groundbreaking funding will help ensure that every New Mexican can access critical infrastructure like high-speed broadband, electric vehicle infrastructure, and will help to create good-paying jobs and build a clean energy future. We're grateful to the Secretary for his leadership, our mayor, and of course, our president for fighting to make sure that we got this legislation across the finish line and could deliver for our communities. As we work to revitalize Albuquerque, I want the people of Albuquerque to know that we're also focusing on many of the other social issues that affect our community as well, including crime, homelessness, and addressing the income needs of our community. I was proud this year through my community-funded projects to secure $18 million in local projects to help support public safety, to help get fentanyl off the streets, to address crime, economic development, youth empowerment, housing, food insecurity, and invest in the well-being and infrastructure of our communities. I'm deeply proud of this funding and the partnerships that we've been undertaking with our communities, and now with these investments from the bipartisan infrastructure law and the Inflation Reduction Act, which we just passed 2 weeks ago, we know that we're going to be able to make the kinds of investments that will help to transform our urban centers as we are doing here today. So I am so deeply proud of this project. I'm so excited about all of the things that it's going to do to help revitalize and build a more vibrant downtown for our communities. And I'm proud to work in Congress serving on behalf of our communities to fight for the transformational investments that our community needs. It's an honor to be able to be here with you all today and to celebrate with our mayor. I want to say congratulations to you. It's a very exciting day, and thank you all for being here today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman, and for all that you do in addition to this project. And so wonderful to see so much progress happening now in Washington under your leadership and our president's. Now we want to turn quickly to the executive director of this facility of Fusion. And as you've heard alluded to, part of what this project does is it unites neighborhoods. But that's also literal. So it literally connects communities that were divided by the railroad tracks, over 100 years ago. And so, we like to remind people that once upon a time, Edo and downtown were the same neighborhood, right? Bareilles and South Broadway were the same neighborhood. And so what this project is also doing is reuniting our community in the core of our city. And part of that is also revitalizing the theater district. once upon a time, the wool warehouse actually did stuff with wool. But in the more modern era, it was a theater, and it was also where I went to prom. Now what we see down here is a bunch of different theaters. This really is becoming New Mexico's theater district, and it's going to be a very special place. One of the reasons why a lot of people don't know about it is because it's so kind of buried in a corner with only one street in and one street out. That is all going to change with this project, and so we're fortunate that Fusion had the foresight to invest here long before that and never give up on this vision of a theater district. So with that, let's bring up Dennis Gromelski. Dennis, come on up.
I'll never say a bad word about Tuesday afternoons again. It's wonderful to have all of you here for all of these incredible reasons. Thank you at every level of government for helping to make this happen. I didn't get here in town until 1990, but it's my hometown.
You were there for prom.
Well, yeah. On January 6th of 2001, we moved into this building, typical naive arts people, a building that had been vacant for 18 years prior. There was a strip joint down the street, the Ice House. The BIA was about to move out of the building right across the street, which ended up being vacant for a dozen years. And it was a rather difficult neighborhood to be in. I didn't understand at the time necessarily that was a typical pattern. As I mentioned earlier to Carlos, the arts move in and to a downtrodden neighborhood, and then all of a sudden they build something up and create a place that people want to be, and then of course they get gentrified. So the artists do. So we thought it was very important when we had the opportunity in 2016 to purchase this entire property, which we did with the help of a foundation and an incredible prior ownership group that enabled it to be financially feasible for us to do it. And we now have two indoor performing arts facilities, as well as this outdoor facility that you see here. The trail has always been something that we've been, the idea of it, keenly interested in because it is right here. We were encouraged back in 2010 by the UNM's Department of the School of Architecture to look at our beachfront property here, because that's truly what this is in Albuquerque. And it is so exciting to see, in advance of this announcement, all of the private investment that has gone on up and down this trail. Innovate Albuquerque, the CNM Makers Space, all of the Garcia properties here, and all of these properties, the Yates family. These are all big developers who are communicating with city, municipal government, state government, our Congress people, and now the feds as well. And with everyone on the same page, what this is really doing is connecting the dots of downtown and helping our community. This is a project that, correct me if I'm wrong, but the Chamber is behind, the Hispano Chamber, the Convention and Visitors Bureau. Even the Albuquerque Journal had wonderful things to say in an editorial about this project. So we're so thrilled to be involved, and we have been involved at this ground level, and I can tell you that it has been transformative for us as a nonprofit to be working towards the arrival of this trail, as well as what we have planned going forward now that the announcement has been made. So thank you very much, all of you, for attending. It's about connecting the dots. The excitement for me personally is not only to see so many people coming through here, but for the 8-9 neighborhoods that will be directly connected, to see the Marquette Crossing now. It's open. We can get across the tracks here for the first time since, I believe, 1974, when the convention center went up. That's awesome. As theater people and as arts people, we are storytellers. And everyone has a story to tell, and it's incredibly important that everyone here locally has stories to tell. And in the forefront of our minds as we go forward with the very important planning process now, what stories can we tell our future residents of Albuquerque? And I think this trail is really going to be able to be a path and mile markers towards what Albuquerque can be, towards what New Mexico is, and reconnecting communities. So thank you so much and really appreciate the administrative support.
Well, thank you so much, Dennis, and for all of your belief in this project, but also in theater. You know, it's a little known fact that Albuquerque, I think, has more per capita theaters than any other city here. Some stat like that. And so we'll take it. It's an awesome cornerstone of who we are as a city. So look, with that, we're going to wrap things up. We can take questions if there are some. And I would say this, because I know this question would get asked. Look, we now have a total of $36 million. Depending on how far this actually goes, excuse me, that's at least half the funding we need to go all the way to Old Town. So we are good to go for like phase 1, 2, and 3 all the way from Lomas and beyond. And so this is what's great about this project is because of this money, thanks, because of this money, we are going to be able to do these phases, you know, essentially now, meaning this year, next year, et cetera. They're already in design and so forth. So Burqueños and New Mexicans are going to start seeing this project. The first step was the at-grade crossing. As mentioned, it's the first time you can walk across the tracks in like 50 years. That's going to continue. And so we are going to get to see this in the short term and in the long term. So with that, we'll just see if there are any particular questions. And if not, we'll wrap things up. Okay, we can do them after too. All right, thanks so much, everybody. Thank you, congratulations. Thanks so much.